I'll kiss you before the weekend is over. I said, I'll kiss you before the weekend is over. I'll catch you. Don't worry. I'll catch you. So we are honored and privileged to have with us a shliach from Eretz Yisrael and shliach of the Rebbe, who's originally a Pittsburgher, and I think once a Pittsburgher, always a Pittsburgher. So a shliach, we have here a Hechatimtza, a shliach in Eretz Yisrael, that's a Pittsburgher, that's coming to Farbrengen with us. So he certainly has an understanding of Pittsburgh, and he's going to be able to inspire us with words of inspiration from Eretz HaKodesh, from Eretz Yisrael. Right now we live in a time where we know the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael are literally standing with Mesiras Nefesh. I mean, there are obviously around the country, around the world, many people that have been in Eretz Yisrael and for whatever reason decided during such times it's difficult to be in Eretz Yisrael and leave temporarily. But everybody that's there, in spite of the fact that what the world says and what people tell them, and as we know, what happened before the 6-Day War, before the Yom Kippur War, and many of them asked the Rebbe what to do. Should they go to Eretz Yisrael or should they leave Eretz Yisrael? And the Rebbe adamantly told everyone that this is the safest place in the world. But if you're talking about the safest place in the world, it's obviously safe from the spiritual sense. Simply, it's safe physically. It's a question where to go. So, of course, you stay where it's safest. They announced in Eretz Yisrael now that this is the time to go to the what's it called, Mamad?
Mamad.
Yeah.
Safe room. Safe room.
But they call it the Mamad. It's time to go into the Mamad. And so sometimes that's the announcement to go, and but not always. But what we know from what the Rebbe told us, that we're always in the Ma'amaz. Everything, just our anybody that's there with the Bitochen and Amunah that the Ebershter Hinu L'Yonu V'L'Yishin Shem Yisrael is continuously living with his Amunah. All of us can say, you have faith? Of course we have faith. But what are we doing about it? Are we, like the Rebbe talks about the Maimon, the Matzav of the Yidden that were in Russia, particularly the Friedrich Rebbe, particularly in 1927, where he knew Mesiras Nefesh wasn't even the issue, because every moment of his life and everything that he did, in the involvement that he had, as the Rebbe Rashab instructed him, his involvement was that he should be kol kula, he should be totally involved and immersed in doing what he can on behalf of Yidden. And this was from the time that the Friedrich Rebbe was 15 years old. Can you imagine a 15-year-old boy, and the 15-year-old boy is there with Mesiras Nefesh. There's a famous story where the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab told the Friedrich Rebbe to go to a big asifa of Rabbanim, a gathering of Rabbanim, and the Rebbe Rashab also told one of his big chassidim that he's a 15-year-old boy, I want you to go along with him. But the Rebbe Rashab said to this chassid, I want you to make sure that you let him do what he thinks he needs to do. You're not there to tell him what to do. You're just there, for the long beard. Friedrich Rebbe, when he was 15 years old, he didn't have any long beard. He had a beard at all. But the point of it is that meant living with Mesiras Nefesh. He taught the world what it means to live with Mesiras Nefesh. He actually lived with Mesiras Nefesh, and everybody knew that he had the greatest amount of Mesiras Nefesh back then. And what he did, because of that Mesiras Nefesh, he empowered each and every one of us as Chassidim of the Rebbe. We are empowered to have the Mesiras Nefesh for the Eibishter. Obviously, it's a different kind of Mesiras Nefesh today, but nevertheless, it's Mesiras Nefesh, meaning going beyond our comfort zone, our comfort level. So l'chaim, the Eibishter should help. We should take a day like Yud Tammuz, Yud Gimel Tammuz, which was a day, as the Friedrich Rebbe said, it wasn't just a redemption for me, it was a redemption for all of Klal Yisrael, because it was only because of that literally, anybody that knows what went on in Russia back then knows that if not for what the Friedrich Rebbe did, and literally there were hundreds of yeshivas all throughout Russia that the Friedrich Rebbe encouraged and actually built and was in touch with them on a regular basis. And that was certainly the reason that he was arrested and he was given the death penalty. And Yud Tammuz is the day of redemption. So we all need to recognize we have the koyach today. We're given the koyach today. So it's a time for us to make the right resolutions, the right commitments. And when we make it on a special day, Hashem gives us the koyach to be able to actually follow through with it. So l'chaim, it should be a geula in the greater sense from Mashiach. But in Geula, until Mashiach comes, we should have a Geula in our own right personally and be able to leave our limitations and go beyond in every way possible. L'chaim.
Hi.
Now we're going to have the pleasure of having Rabbi Farbrengen. Rabbi Deren, he's been here in the past, and I can tell you that many of the people that I shared with them, when I told them that you're coming to Farbrengen, they said, Rabbi Deren, he's been here in the past, and we had such a pleasurable time. So
they probably mixed me up with the straw.
Yeah.
That and all.
So what? They'll mix you up now too? Anyway,
L'chaim. Good jump tiff.
I think I have a break at least in a letter. How are you?
Always time for a kiss. I'll start with a story. Story's always better, right? Story's always better. There's a personal story, and it has to be a lesson. Well, spoiler alert. I'm going to give you the punchline first, and then it's okay. A personal relationship with the Rebbe. That is to say that the Rebbe knows you personally. and that he means you personally, and today also. What do I mean by that? I was at a Farbrengen this year, the Leil Purim, and it was about 2:30 in the morning. It was in somebody's house in the neighborhood, and there were only about 3 or 4 people left with the Farbrengen. Myself, the Balabos, another guy, one of our community members, who was in the artillery force in Gaza, who had gotten away, but came home for the weekend or for a week or whatever, and one other member of the community was in the at the Farbrengen, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Anyhow, so this guy, the soldier, also part of the community, he was saying something amazing. Purim time already, politically things were already heating up in Eretz Yisrael, back again, and so on. And he said something which I'm sure all of you have also noticed on your own. He said, you listen to the Rebbe's Sikha from 40-something years ago, and the Rebbe describes the situation in Eretz Yisrael, and the Rebbe is talking back in the 80s and the 90s, and describing the situation in Eretz Yisrael. And when you listen to the Sikha, it's so obvious that the Rebbe is just talking about exactly what's going on now in 2024. Amazing, says it. Amazing how 30, 40 years ago, and you can hear from Sikhas even further back, that 30, 40 years ago, the Rebbe describing a situation in Eretz Yisrael, and it is so obviously, so clearly that the Rebbe is describing exactly what's going on in Eretz Yisrael right now. Amazing that the Rebbe had the foresight. And that was the gist of his point. And I was at the thing, and I said something which I later regretted, but I'll share that with you also. I said to him, listen, I hear people say this often, that the Rebbe speaks about a situation, especially politics in Eretz Yisrael, which a lot of people listen to those sikhas over again and see the pertinence and the accuracy of the Rebbe's sikha as it is today, and not something which we have to extrapolate from the history and translate it into today, but that the Rebbe is clearly describing a current situation of today. In any case, I said, that doesn't prove that the Rebbe has Ruach HaKodesh. Of course, the Rebbe does have Ruach HaKodesh. But when you say something like that, and say that 30, 40, 50 years ago, the Rebbe could describe a situation that's going to happen in 30, 40, 50 years and describe it so perfectly and so exactly, that's not a proof of Ruach HaKodesh. I later regretted my words, but I want to make sure, and I'll show you, but you have to understand what the problem is when you have to understand the solution. What did I say? What was my hypothesis? I said, listen, the Rebbe, he when he sees a situation, he sees the essence of the situation. And the Pittsburgh Rebbe actually describes this, that it's very important that a person, today they call it being present. And the Pittsburgh Rebbe is very, very positive and encouraging about this attitude, that in every situation that a person finds themselves, that they should be very aware of what's going on around them. And very aware, on the Rebbe's level, or as much as we could understand it, is to see the essence of a situation. So just for example, let's say I were to describe what's going on now. Right? I'm at a Farbrengen. So I would describe what's at the Farbrengen. Okay, so we have some hummus over here. I can tell you what kind of mashka we have over here, and so on and so forth. And there were people sitting around the table. And so, 30, 40 years, in 30, 40 years, if I describe, somebody takes my words, they try to translate it to that Farbrengen, they say, oh my gosh, what kind of Farbrengen was that? Who had the Arbus of Farbrengen, and what the hell was that mashka name anyways? It doesn't exist anymore. So So my words will not be so pertinent, and it would certainly be that nobody would accuse me of having Ruach HaKodesh if they hear my description of a situation 30, 40 years later. But imagine if the Rebbe would sit at this Farbrengen, and of course the Rebbe is here at this Farbrengen, and what does he see? He doesn't see exactly, if it's Johnny Walker or if it's Glenn Fitch or it's against this. He sees who's here. He sees what's going on. He sees in your eyes. He sees the feelings that are, I don't even know what the Rebbe would see on that level. But what the Rebbe would see here would be something, the essence of what's going on. And if the Rebbe would describe to somebody else, or if he would say in a Sikha, I was at a Farbrengen in the Lubavitch Center, and at that Farbrengen was again Azoy and Azoy. This was what was happening. This is what was going on. That essence remains. That essence will live. And the third Mir Hashem, 30, 40, 50 years from now, this community, we all be together in Yerushalayim, Farbrengen with the Rebbe Mamish, and somebody would take a recording of the Rebbe's description of the Farbrengen the way it was in Pittsburgh 30, 40 minutes ago, and it's exactly, he's describing today's situation, because the essence doesn't change. The essence is there. That was my hypothesis. That Lav Dafka Ruach HaKodesh. Not Chas v'Shalom. I didn't say that the Rebbe doesn't have Ruach HaKodesh. I said that description, when the Rebbe describes a situation, that's not necessarily Ruach HaKodesh. It's being able to see the essence. That was what I said. Anyhow, somebody else, Mamish walked into the Farbrengen 2:30 in the morning. A guy comes in. He says, "I have a story for you guys. I just heard it. Unbelievable. What's the story?" He tells the story like this. He says he just heard it from somebody. I'll say the names if it means anything to you or whatever, but it'll just make it easier for me to say instead of just in case I don't get the pronouns right. I'll use the proper names. So a guy walks in. He says, "I just heard a story from Yossi Kaplan." Yossi Kaplan is a shliach in wherever it is. I'll remember in a few minutes. Anyhow, Yossi Kaplan told him a story. He says Yossi Kaplan is about he's in his 50s, maybe 60. Just so you know, like how the story works back. Yossi Kaplan told him a story that started when he was a bocher in yeshiva by the Rebbe in, I think, Tafshin Mem Zayin or Tafshin Mem Ches. One of the first Kinusei Shluchim. That'd be about Tafshin Mem Zayin Mem Ches time be'erech. He was a bocher in yeshiva at the time, and Shabbos of the Kinus, the Rebbe spoke at the Farbrengen that an amazing thing is here, that there's shluchim, that Baruch Hashem, I think I said, I don't know what the exact wording was, but that even though things are rough at the beginning, but after, I think the Rebbe's language was, after 10 years, statistics show that all the shluchim, after 10 years, that the things iron themselves out, and they begin to live a more, these are my words, a more comfortable life. That is to say that even though that's going on a shlichus could sometimes be a very rough ride in the beginning, the Rebbe's message is that what we see is that by 10 years, things work themselves out and the situation gets better for the shluchim. Yossi Kaplan tells a story that he had a friend who was a classmate of his this is 19, the member class would be 88, 87, 88, 1987, 86, 87, 88, whether it's Mem Zayin, Mem Ches. He had a classmate that was with him, and that classmate wrote into the Rebbe after Shabbos. I don't know exactly why he did this or what, but he said it was in a bissel a chutzpah way. And what he wrote to the Rebbe is that it's not necessarily 10 years. Sometimes it's 15 or 20. That's what he wrote to the Rebbe. Now, I'm not sure. At the Sikha, the Rebbe said 10 years. What I heard was, I didn't look it up and see that when after the Farbrengen, they write up the Farbrengen, they send it into the Rebbe to edit it. The Rebbe goes over and comes out what's called Muga. Edited, this is the Rebbe's edited, verified version. When the Sikha came out, they wrote 10, whatever, and the Rebbe corrected it to 1520. I'm not sure if that, I didn't check it yet. That the Rebbe said 10. It's verified. Exactly what came out that the guy wrote in 1520 is verified. Whether the Sikha Muga, but anybody can look that up. It's the Memvov, one of those years. Anyhow, that's the beginning of the story. A few years later, this bacher goes back, he gets married, and he goes out on shlichus. And he's having a rough time. Things are going very, very, very rough for him. Baruch Hashem, he has classmates that they stayed together, and as the Yossi Kaplan told me, he said that that the classmates would get together and that but financially would help this guy out over the years, 1 year, 2 years, over many, many years, whenever they would get together by the Kinus HaShluchim, because by now all these guys are married, all these guys are Shluchim in their own right. They're all coming back to the meeting at least once a year, maybe more, whatever. And this guy every year, maybe I'm adding a little bit of touches here and there, but the situation is that his personal financial situation was very, very not good, to the point where his friends were always knew that get together and try to help him in any way, just to get over the next hurdle, etc., etc. In any case, 1 year, all of these guys, this class, get together again at the Kinus HaShluchim. This is one of the nights of the Kinus. I'm not sure which one of the nights it was. In any case, it's now about 2 o'clock in the morning. They're Farbrengen together in 770, and as usual, and they're trying to be encourage their friend, the one who's going through the very difficult shlichus, the difficult personal situation, and they're giving him encouragement, talking, and they're Farbrengen, and they're crying, and they're davening, and they're pleading to the Eibishter. And Yisrael Friedman, all of us told him, maybe he was their teacher from Olei Torah. He sees these boys. I guess he knows them when they were with the Bachrim. He says, "What's going on over here?" So he told them the situation. He says, "Guys, all of you, right now, get into a taxi and you're going to the oil. And every single one of you're going into the oil and you're going to ask by the Rebbe, he should plead by the Eibishter daven for your friend's situation. When you go to the oil, you don't ask for yourself, you don't ask for your wife, nothing. You go and you're going to be by the oil and you're going to ask right now." And they piled into 2 taxis. They come to the oil. They went in and they davened and they cried. It's not, and this is Yossi Kaplan who told the story to my friend, and I verified all the details with him. Anyhow, he says so now it's about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and they want to take taxis to go back to Crown Heights. So they were with their friend. And the one who was going through the difficult times. And he says, "You know what? You guys go to Crown Heights. I'm staying here by the Ohel. Why?" He says, "I have to meet somebody here." And he tells them who he has to meet. He says there was a guy, a frum guy, who passed through his Chabad house not long ago, a businessman, and he made a shtickle connection with him. And he says, I come to New York, I try to take advantage of the situation that I'm here already, try to raise some money. So before I called up this guy who's a New York businessman, and I asked him if I can come meet with him. And he said to me, I'm going to meet you by the oil. And at 9 o'clock, I'm supposed to meet him here. So I'm going to stay here. And I have my meeting at 9 o'clock with this guy. Fine. They go back to Crown Heights, they leave him there to have his meeting. And later he tells them the story. What happened at the meeting? He meets the guy. The guy comes in, not a Lubavitch guy. He comes in and then, by the way, Shalom Aleichem, how are you? So he had already prepared his whole spiel, with the PowerPoint presentation and the pictures and the dust. He opens up the album, wants to show him. The guy says, "You close the album. I'm not interested." Oh my gosh, now his heart, the mamish into the floor. I mean, it's like, you knew that. I mean, you asked me, you agreed to meet, you knew what I was going to. Listen, I got a deal. I have a deal with you. I have a contract. I'm taking this contract. You're going to read it, and you're going to sign this contract, but you're not going to sign it here. You're going to go into the oil, to the Tzion. You're going to read it there, and you're going to sign it there. By the Rebbe, you're going to sign this contract. Okay, let me see what it is. Takes out the contract. Oh, the guy tells him, says, "Listen, I know your situation. I was by you for Shabbos. Friday night, you had a beautiful service in your Chabad house. I think even made a shtickle kiddush. It was very nice. You invited me to your house, and we had tuna fish on the table. So I see already the situation. Next day, I was by you're davening in the Chabad house, Shabbos day. Again, it was beautiful to see what you're doing with your community. You made a kiddush there. It was nice. Again, you invited me to your house. I came to your house. I don't know who the guy is and where he is, whatever. So, but I mean, it must be on the stick somewhere. They had nowhere else to go, this guy. So it's Shabbos, so he goes to the shliach, says the same thing I saw on this. I know what's going on in your house. I got it. Here's the deal. Here's the contract. The contract says as follows. I will give you $5,000 a month and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're not allowed to give one penny of this $5,000 to your pa'ulas. It all has to go to your own personal situation. All $5,000, and you'll see in the lashon of this is, and you have to read this by the Rebbe. If you take one penny from the $5,000 and use it for pa'ulas, not for your personal needs, you're a gazlan and a shakran, and whatever else is there, and that's what you're going to take this into the Rebbe and you're going to sign. So it goes into he agrees, goes in, he signs the deal, and this businessman, he kept his word. $5,000 every single month for his personal needs. He helped him beyond that. By now, the shliach is already marrying off children. The businessman helped him marry off his children. He helped them buy homes. Baruch Hashem. So he, what's the gist of the story? Is that the guy made a cheshbon, the shliach made a cheshbon, that the day when he met this businessman and he signed the contract was exactly 20 years after he had gone out on shlichus. Yeah. So you get the moral of the story. I didn't get it right. I mean, I got it right away, but I missed something out. I woke up the next morning. To support him in the morning. I woke up the next morning and my heart fell. I realized this guy just given such a perfect example of how you have to be careful what you say, especially put words in the Rebbe's mouth, say something about the Rebbe. And here, what had I said a minute before, right before this guy told his story, I had said something about the Rebbe's Ruach HaKodesh. I said, oh my gosh, what did I do? Thank God there was only 4 or 5 people at the Farbrengen. Pour him in the morning before I went to daven. I went chasing down all those 4 people. 2 of them remembered that. 2 of them didn't remember what I had said. But in any case, I knew that I had at least stopped the dam from breaking, whatever. But I felt so terrible that I had I knew I needed to do tshuva in this. I knew I had to do tshuva. I have to do tshuva for saying such a thing. So Purim by night, I was Farbrengen in Beit Shemesh. So I have to, like the Rambam says, if you make a mistake to one extreme, you have to correct it by going all the way to another extreme. So I'm Farbrengen Purim by night in Beit Shemesh, and I tell the guys, listen, I want you to know, you should know. I gave as an example. You write to the Rebbe, and you have a question, you want a bracha, and you look for an answer. So I used as an example. You open up an Igros Kodesh. I'm saying I use it as an example only because I'm not advocating for or against it, but it's a clear example of how you can get an answer from the Rebbe and how many people do. And so you open up, and especially in the crowd that I was talking to there, they were very familiar with what I'm talking about. In any case, I said, you got to answer from the Rebbe in the Igros Kodesh. Does the Rebbe mean you? Or is this an answer to somebody else? And Ashkacha Pratis, since that you get the same answer that this guy gets, or it's similar there. However, the Eibishter Ashkacha Pratis, or the Rebbe's intervention that you should open up exactly in the right place, get this. So what I said was, you should know that when the Rebbe wrote this letter, you may have opened Igros Kodesh, find a letter from the 1950s that the Rebbe wrote to somebody before you were even born, and you open that, and the letter is pertinent exactly to what you asked, and you know it's for you. You know the answer. You know that's the answer. You know it's the Rebbe answering you per answer. But when the Rebbe wrote that letter, did he have you in mind? You weren't even born yet. Did he mean you too? I said, yes. The Rebbe means you too. You can ask a question. I mean, how the Rebbe could mean you, Mele. But, look, 40, 50 people may have gotten their answers from that very same letter. There's thousands, probably tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people that open up, that get answers from Igros. For sure, many people have gotten their answer from the same letter. Just statistically, I don't know this for sure, but statistically, if tens or hundreds of thousands of people are doing it on a daily basis around the world, and the only shelf is this big, for sure people. So the Rebbe wrote the letter to Pliny. The Rebbe had in mind when he wrote this letter that in 2024, stuff shouldn't pay Dalit. Pliny ben Pliny is going to need an answer. I'm writing this now, and I have him in mind, and I'm writing it, and it's for him, it's for her, it's for him, it's for her. Absolutely 100%. Absolutely 100%. Where do we see such a thing? We see by the Rambam. Rambam wrote, also, what we have from the Rambam is a limited amount of volumes of the Rambam's writing. How many pilpulim have been written about the Rambam's writings? I don't know. It's limited technically, but it's unlimited in fact because it's still going on. And there's libraries. There's libraries, not shelves. Libraries can be filled with the books of writings. What did the Rambam mean when he wrote this? When he wrote that? And the general explanation asked, did the Rambam have this whole library in mind? Seemingly impossible. The answer is no. It's not impossible. But the Rambam wrote with Ruach HaKodesh. Now, what does that mean? The Rambam wrote with Ruach HaKodesh. And if anybody wants to slug me up, you can try. I mean, I'll be happy. I mean, I won't be happy, but I'll be happy. But I tried this out already on several different crowds, and
Nobody slugged you up.
nobody slugged me up yet. Maybe. Let's see. It's not when we say the Rambam wrote with Ruach HaKodesh, it doesn't mean that the Rambam had his limited what our understanding of how much the intellect can carry. The Rambam had that much in his mind, and the Ruach HaKodesh directed his pen to write the words exactly in this and this way, beyond his own personal understanding, and that the Ruach HaKodesh did know the libraries, right? And nobody's going to argue that the Shechina, who directs the Rambam's writings, the Ruach HaKodesh, that the Shechina had in mind the whole libraries. Nobody's going to disagree with that. Nobody can argue. Say, oh no, that's too hard to read. That's like that's a no-brainer. So when we say that the Rambam did not have in mind, but it was the Ruach HaKodesh, what we're saying is like this: how could the Shechina possibly have all of this in mind? No, but then the Shechina on the Shechina it says, "Ki loy machshavosai machshavoseichem." My mind doesn't work like your mind works. And Siddur Tanya, Siddur is full of this on the depth of what that means. It's not just that my mind is a supercomputer or whatever, but it's like it's not even a different league, it's a different sport. So when we say that the Rambam wrote with Ruach HaKodesh, what we're saying is, and to say that it's taka true that we cannot fathom how a human mind of flesh and blood could possibly write something and have in mind a whole myriad of possibilities that could be extrapolated from that and so on. But since the Rambam writes with Ruach HaKodesh, and the Ruach HaKodesh, everybody's going to agree that the Shechina did have in mind. So the Rambam on that level, he did have in mind. But that's beyond us already. So that's why we put it there. But it's not that it wasn't the Rambam's. It's not. It's the part of the Rambam that we cannot understand. But it was his. Ruach HaKodesh was to him. How he could possibly have all of that in mind, we don't know. We also don't know how the Shechina could possibly have all that in mind. We just figure, okay, the Shechina is a supercomputer, so he could do it. But when you think about it, that's not an explanation. That's just pushing it out of your responsibility to understand. And Taka can't understand. And you're not supposed to understand. But you're supposed to have Amunah, that's the way it is. And if you have the Amunah, so if you have Amunah, as says, that's by the Rambam also. By the Rambam. So the Rambam has in mind all these things on a level that we cannot understand. But that's the general accepted explanation is, yes, the Rambam did have it in mind on the level of Ruach HaKodesh. All of those seemingly impossible amount of details. Al derech zeh, when the Rebbe writes a letter in 1950, and in Tavshin Pei Dalid, somebody is going to open that letter and say, "Oh, this was an answer to me." Yes, and maybe 30 people got this that's on the same day. Yes, the Rebbe had you in mind, and you in mind, and you in mind, and he wrote it with this. Yeah, well, we can't understand how and what and when, but on the level of Ruach HaKodesh, yeah, it was the Rebbe, and on the level that we don't have, but he meant you. He meant you. Or he meant whoever it was that it was direct. Whoever got their answer, the Rebbe meant it. So I'm thinking. This is what you see already. I'm pushing to the other extreme. So at this Farbrengen, I'm waiting for somebody to say maybe come up with a counter argument. So one of the guys at the Farbrengen says, Rabbi, can I tell a story? Yeah, sure. Sorry. So it happened with me with the Rebbe. It happened with me. So I grew up in Montreal. And I'll use his words, just maybe you might understand. He says, I grew up in a typical, these are his words, a Moroccan family, or my father's a typical Moroccan. Those were his words. And he said, what do I mean by that? I mean by that is that he had everything structured. He knew exactly what's supposed to be with me. So since I'm whatever, 5, 7 years old, I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm supposed to this. Everything is that's the way I grew up and that's what I know, and so on and so forth. So he says, fine. That's why I grew up. That's why I was fit. And that's where I knew where I'm going. Said when he was 17 years old, he says, something happened. I decided I'm going to yeshiva. And I have to come home and tell my father that I'm changing my plans. I'm going to yeshiva. And he knew that it's going to be a difficult conversation. So he tells his father, listen, I decided I want to go to yeshiva. And his father goes, okay. Wow, he's so surprised. His father sees that he's surprised. So his father says, I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what happened. So when you were a little boy, I was holding you in my hands and I took you to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe gave me $1. The Rebbe gave you $1. And then the Rebbe said to me, the father says, in French. So he told me in French what the Rebbe said to his father. I don't know. I can't repeat it. But if anybody, it sounds like this is a phrase, if anybody speaks French. But in any case, what he said was, what the Rebbe told the father, pointed to the little boy, he said, I'll say it in the English vernacular is, let him do his thing. Or in French, is let him do his project. If there's anybody familiar with such a phrase. But in English, I guess it would be translated as, let him do his thing. So the father says, you were, how old could you have been? I was holding you on my hands. He said, I never knew what the Rebbe meant. I never told you this. I never this. But now I know what the Rebbe meant. And so this kid, obviously he was by the Rebbe, but by the time he had decided that he wanted to go to yeshiva, this was already after Gimel Tammuz. So the Rebbe sees a child in front of him. He knows exactly what's going to happen right here with the child, and he gives the father directions, instructions. It's clear the Rebbe knows exactly what's happening in this child's life in another 10 to 12, whatever, how many years in the future that's going to happen. The story goes on. Say l'chaim or continue the story? Well, I can do both. Chaim.
Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, sure.
I have a house at an alley. And I came home one night, it was late. The car blocking. Hey, I'm further in, so I could go in whatever. The next day, I'm doing it. It's not right. I'm trying to play the park further in. I'll park where I want. You don't like it, do something about it. Why I said what I said, I have no idea. If you do this again, I'm gonna write you up in the Rambam. I just learned the halachas. I'm going to visit the soil what it's kind. Sat down, I took the Rambam, wrote a Shulchan, I said, what Lucius, wrote in your chibur, how come that's going to be your soil is kind this is what's happening, the guy's parking in my driveway, I go home at night. Why am I supposed to say it without? Be right to them. I'm gonna write you up in the wrong.
Chaim.
Who wasn't the Baal Menagin?
Till he comes, I'll tell part 2 of the story. So now I have a Tanya de Messiah, a story, a supporting story. Yeah, for that when the Rebbe says something, and even though it's 20, 30, 40 years later, and you could say, well, you could find that what the Rebbe said then is also pertinent now. But it's more than that. It's that the Rebbe means also what you're getting from it later. When he says it at the time, he knows. He knows who's going to open. He knows who's going to look for this, and he knows when he's writing now. he's writing for all the hundreds of people, and for each one and their issues, their questions, and it's personal. It's personal to each and every single person. So 2 days later, I had shared this already 2 or 3 times. Had not yet been slugged up. I had another Farbrengen. I'm sitting around Farbrengen, and so I tell the story. And now, with the addition of the Montreal faction, and the guy says, hey, "Come on, that's Pashut. That's Pashut." A spoiler alert. He said, "The Alter Rebbe writes clearly in the Tanya. Alter Rebbe writes in the Tanya. I know it's difficult. It's difficult to give these kinds of eitzes in writing, and especially even face to face difficult. In writing, it's even more so. But what does the Alter Rebbe say? I'm writing. I know you. Anybody who opens this book, I know who you are. I recognize. I understand where you're coming from. And actually, a guy told me a story. That he lives in Australia. He went to Australia for surfing reasons, and he ran into the Chabad house there. And they're trying to get him to learn Tanya. Finally, he said, "Okay, I'll learn Tanya." So they tell him, "Okay, every Monday night at 7:00." No, I'm not coming 7:00. Give me the book. I'll take it home. Like, nah, you can't learn by yourself. But listen, either give me the book or I'm going back to the waves. So the guy gave him Kuti Green's Tanya. He was an Israeli, so he gave him the Hebrew version. Anyways, he said that. He said, I opened at 12:00 at night. I opened up the Tanya. He said, I learned. I need an explanation. He says 7:00 in the morning. 7:00 in the morning, I called my friend. I said, "You got to come over right away." Benjamin, he says, "Benjamin, you got to come over right now." So what are you talking about? He says, "I found the answers to all our questions. Somebody gave me a book," and he says, "I'm so sure. I don't know who this author is. I got to find out. But this is somebody who's living now, because what he's describing is exactly what we're going through right now, and it's clear that you got to come over right now." Anyway, so his friend Benjamin comes over and shows him the book, and he says, "Oh, look, let's open it up. Let's see." You get a book and you want to figure out. You go straight to chapter 1. He didn't even go back and read it, and he goes back. He says, "What? This is written 200 something years ago." What? Anyhow, he starts reading, goes through the Hakdama, and he sees and says, "Oh, yeah, absolutely." The Alter Rebbe, when he wrote the Tanya, and he says it, the Alter Rebbe says, he testifies about himself that when I write this book, I know exactly who's good. I think maybe Kuti Green brings it in his commentary in the Tanya. Maybe I think he brings something from Avart Baksidim, that the Alter Rebbe promised that anybody who's going to learn the Tanya, something about lines, if anybody's familiar with this Chassidic Avart, that anybody, or this Chassidic tradition, that the Alter Rebbe said that anybody who opens the Tanya, I'm referring to him when he says B'Yodai, that I know who you are, and I know what you mean, and I'm relating to you personally. So now I have not just another Rebbe story to support my things. I have Mamish, I have a Fedish Mishnah. I have Alter Rebbe's own writings, that what Alter Rebbe writes 200 and something years ago, and you open a Tanya today and you find an answer to yours, and Alter Rebbe says, "No, it's not that I meant something. I know because Alter Rebbe writes it. So a book like this has to be personal. It's not a general rule, because everybody takes things their own way." He actually said it that way. And since everybody takes things their own way, you need to know who you're talking to. And that's why when you give these kinds of advice on that level to individuals, it has to be personal. So the Alter Rebbe says, "So nevertheless, I'm doing it because it's personal. I know who you are. I know exactly who you are, and I'm writing here." And so the Alter Rebbe writes, and he spent 6 weeks on a vav, I should put the vav, yeah, the vav, nishvav. Because over there he gives his reasons, but you see how careful what he's writing is, because he knows exactly who's going to open and what they're going to need, and what each and every person, how you can write it that it should be applicable to each and every single individual on a personal level, even though each person takes it their way. So a week later, I now have in my packle, quiver of arrows supporting my hypothesis. Tammuz Farbrengen in Meine Yisrael in Bnei Brak. These Meine Yisrael in Bnei Brak is it's an organization. It's Lubavitch Hasidim who grew up and went to yeshivas and so on, not in other Chassidish yeshivas. So it's an eclectic crowd of a bunch of different guys from all different. What's the description for Meine Yisrael? Chassidish guys, non-Baal Shem Tov Chassidim, that are now all learning Tanya, and they're getting a personal relationship. I told the story there. I told the first part of the story. I told the Montreal part of the story. I told the Australia part of the story. And the guy says, let me add a Bnei Brak part of the story. It's out there. Let me add the Bnei Brak part of the story. He said, one of our community members, a younger man, he says he's not here tonight by the Farbrengen, but something happened with him just recently. And I'm not sure if recently means a year ago or two, whatever, or 3 months ago, but it was something which had been fresh. He says, his wife is having a birthday, and he promised his wife that for her birthday, he's going to bring her, I think he's going to get her a Rebbe dollar. $1 from there. No, said it. Because, I'm not sure how much time he had in advance, but he figured whatever amount of time until her birthday was, he figured he'll get $1. He's pulling in this, he can't find. And during the meantime, he was in New York, he was by the oil. He met a guy from Crown Heights by the oil, and he told him, I want $1 from there. The guy said, yeah, come with me, come. He goes back to Crown Heights with the guy. I don't know, by the time they got to the house, things changed. He walked out of the house without $1. He now comes back to Eretz Yisrael, and his wife's birthday is tomorrow, and he doesn't have $1 for her. Avort is avort. Word is a word. So he's running up and down, and one of his neighbors, Bnei Brak, they're all from people, not all of them Meine Yisrael, but one of his neighbors says, what's on your mind? What's troubling you? He said, what do you tell her? I promised my wife, tell me the guy's not a Lubavitcher, maybe he won't understand. Promised my wife a Rebbe dollar, and I don't have it, and her birthday's tomorrow, and nothing. Tell me what's about this. So he tells him, come with me. So I was by the Rebbe. This story happened recently. So this guy had been by the Rebbe, obviously, talking about several decades ago. So I was by the Rebbe once, and he gave me $1 for me, and then he gave me another $1, and he said, these are the Rebbe's words. He said, give this for a Yid in Eretz Yisrael. So if the Rebbe would give one of us $1 for a Yid in Eretz Yisrael, as soon as we touch the ground, right after you kiss the ground, you look for a Yid and you do the shlichus, right? He's not a Lubavitcher, so he didn't really feel as if he had the responsibility. And matter whatever it is, he pushed it off or delayed it, didn't know. But as he remembered, he said, the Rebbe gave me, he said, this is for a Yid in Eretz Yisrael. No. I don't know how old this guy is, or the guy who got the $1, but it's possible that he wasn't even born But when the Rebbe gave this guy the dollar for a Yid in Eretz Yisrael, who certainly wasn't a Lubavitcher at the time, certainly in this. So you should know when you turn to the Rebbe today, we all get our answers, and I think every single one of us, we each have our own way how the Rebbe answers. The point is, you should know that it's not that that there's something out there, and that the Hashgacha Pratis says, okay, you have a question, the answer is there. I'm going to direct you because that the answer that was given to somebody else is also pertinent to you, so I'll direct you there. No. When it was put out there, when the Rebbe wrote it in the first place, or when the Rebbe said it in the first place, or whatever it was, however it is that you're getting from the Rebbe, when the Rebbe said it, did it, whatever it was, he knew that in Tavshin Pei Dalet, or that's Pliny Ben Pliny is going to have a question, and he's saying it now, and it's for you personally, and you should know that the Rebbe is answering you personally to your opinion. And it's important to know that, because the Rebbe does not just answer questions. All right, here's the question, here's the answer. It doesn't work like that. As a matter of fact, Mamish, right before I came here, I said one of these short video clips, the Rebbe says, and the Rebbe says clearly, it depends on who you are. It's just a very clear question. The guy asked, like, how do you know when this and this? How do you know when this and this? It's a simple answer, right? And the Rebbe said, it depends on the person. For some people, it's like this. For some people, it's like that. And so the Rebbe gives you an answer. The answer is for you, and you need to know and to feel. I think it's important that for all of us to know that the Rebbe does not just look out for our needs in general, but the Rebbe looks out for each of us on a personal level. And that is one of the unique things of a Rebbe. A Rebbe is nicht elend. Once upon a time, as he says in Hayyim Yom, the Rebbe, the leader of the community, he had his thing, but he didn't get involved in people's personal lives. They didn't care if he wasn't involved in his personal life. He wasn't involved in their personal life. Now, of course, they came to him with questions. You open a Shulchan Aruch and find the answer. It's true. Shulchan Aruch, you have to know who's asking the question. But there's a deeper level. The questions that we ask the Rebbe are questions which are deeply personal to us, and the Rebbe knows when he answers you, he's answering to you on your personal level. L'chaim.
Oh, yada.
You don't have to say it. L'chaim. Get some rest. I rested this afternoon.
Let's see.
Hang in there, muscle.
The average person can't do that. You and I can't answer.
That's good.
So that's why I need to write it here. I have something for everyone.
Oh, Till Monday. Till Monday. On Wednesday. No, I'm grinding. We stopped in Rome on the way here. We've been in Rome for 2 days.
They weren't there.
They weren't there. No, it's like I got the tunnel already. Ready to eat already.
When they come back down. Son was there.
But also not in Rome.
That's good. It's not far from here. It's 4 hours away from you. At least it was just an hour.
What's his name? The Eagle told the Rambam story. Misham on a Shemesh Yadlik, Shemesh Yadlik. Today, the army's about to do something.
We don't know very much specific, but it's very likely that good news.
Oh, the Rebbe should help. I. You don't like that. Maybe I can. The whole country's gonna get it. Biden has it. Anyhow, the truth is, if somebody can upschlagen, how do you say upschlagen in English? There must be a word for upschlagen. Refute. If anybody can refute this, it's actually good news for me, because actually one of the reasons why I'm here now is because I was, if I don't know if anybody remembers, I certainly do. A year ago, Chai Elul also Farbrengen here, and I also apostatized.
And we all said that enjoyed it so.
And slowly, my beloved nephew. He refuted whatever I said, but he didn't do it later. He sent me a refutation. So I have to come back here. So one of the reasons I came back is I need to rectify something which I said last year. So I'll just say quickly what I said, and also quickly what. So Strawley, just I told you before, if you're gonna slug me up, I'm gonna have to come back again next year.
No,
So last year, Chai Elul, what I mentioned here. Anybody remember? Chai Elul, it brings Chayus. Chai Elul is the day that brings Chayus into Elul. Okay? Elul is serving the Eibishter and Tshuva, V'chulu. So as the Rebbe very often quotes, that Chai Elul brings Chayus. Chai Elul is the day of the Alter Rebbe, the day of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, and that the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, when you learn their teachings, that brings a Chayus into Elul. What is a Chayus? So I translated it then. I mistranslated it then. Chayus is that when you're excited about something, right? So you would think that what the Rebbe's message is when the Rebbe says that Chai Elul gives Chayus is that when you learn Chassidus, is that it gives you excitement about Yiddishkeit, about Torah mitzvahs, about Avodas Hashem, about Tshuva, because you could do all these things without excitement, and you could do these things with excitement. And Chai Elul, the Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe, give you excitement. Or as somebody mentioned here, it's like, right, we should be so excited about davening like we are, like we can go to a Steeler game. Just give you an example of what you sometimes do with chayas. So do we have that chayas? So what? So that's the challenge. The challenge is to make somebody would have said, it's hard to daven 3 times a day. I mean, you do it, but it's hard. Why is it hard? Why is it hard? It's boring. We said it in the morning, we said it in the afternoon, in the evening, yesterday, tomorrow. That's how much better. He says the davening is not boring. You're boring. If you would daven like a mensch, it wouldn't be boring. It would be like something new. It would be different. It would be exciting. It would be new. Anyhow, so that was what he said. And then Charlie sent me a recording of his father, Label Altein, Lang gesund. Hab nachas von alle Zeitzoim. And on one of his Farbrengens, and he sent me the he says, okay, go to minute 23. And there, label Zok Tazoi. So some people mistranslate chayus to mean you're excited. Excited about something, you have a chayus when you do it. But when you think about it and you examine it clearly, chayus is not excitement. Chayus literally means life. What's life? Life is when you breathe. Nobody's excited about breathing. You know when you're excited about breathing? When you're not, right? When you're underwater and or scuba diving and somebody clogs up the hose over there or something, then you get excited about breathing. And you get up as fast as you can. But otherwise, and he told the story. I heard the story in different versions. But one of the versions is that there was a yeshiva in the olden days, in the old country, the yeshivas were set up in such a way where the yeshiva just took care of the learning. And the sleeping and the eating, the bachrim had to take care of themselves. So each bach had to go find somewhere where to rent themselves a room and whatever. And sometimes there would be the yeshiva, and generally, did not. This actually one of the chidushim of Tom Chitimim is that when the Rebbe Shab set up yeshiva, he set it with a kitchen, and Zusha Vilamovsky always Farbrengen that the kitchen was open before the learning. The learning started in Chayelu, and the kitchen was in the Tezva of Elul. And anyways, but so how did it work in a lot of places, most places, whatever, is that the Bachim would eat either by Balabatim that would invite the Bachim, or whatever, or they were taking care of themselves. So you can imagine that especially the financial situation in general then, and especially a Bacher who's coming to learn. And so their food situation was not all that great, which is why the yeshivas are able to get away with the kitchens that they have today. In any case, so the story is told that one time Balabas, he noticed, what these boys are eating. And he says, Shiva Bachim, they're supposed to be, we're supposed to be honoring them. They're special. No, I'm going to make them a special meal. They should have a good meal. So he arranged gebroten endik, roasted turkey meal with roasted turkey. Leave it at that. No, they tell all the Bachim tomorrow's lunch. We're all invited to eat in this hall. And this. The Bachim come in, they see the tables laden down with the roasted turkey and whatever else was there. You can imagine what was going on over there. Yeah, he grabbed it and ate it. Thus, the Balabas is watching over there, and he's very disappointed. Very disappointed. He said, this is how you eat. He says, my friends and I, when we sit down to such a meal, you sit down, nobody grabs, nobody pulls, nobody yells, nobody this. You sit, you wait, take your time, you eat like a mensch. What's going on over here? Where's the menschlichkeit? What's this how you act? But it's so roasted turkey is such a thing that it knocks you out of whack. So there was a mashpia there, and he said, "Let me tell you, chayus is something that you don't get excited about, something that you live, who you are, that you breathe. That's who you are. You don't get excited about it. You breathe, you live. It's fine. Like you said, when do you get excited about not breathing? About breathing when you're not. But if you breathe, it's fine." He says, for you and your friends, your life is roasted turkey. So that's why you're not excited. It's like breathing. That's who you are. You're a roasted turkey. It's nothing special to you. And so you sit down and you eat it, and that's fine. That's who you are. He said, but these Bachrim, that's not who they are. And that's why they got excited. On the contrary, if they wouldn't get excited, I would be worried. What? This is so natural for you. That's who you are. That's your chayus. That's your life. That's your breathing. For them, it was something totally out of the ordinary. It's not who they are. It's not what they want. It's not what they're looking for. It's not what it is. But for you, it's your chayus. And because it's your chayus, therefore, you're not excited about it. You should be ashamed, not them. In any case, so what does it mean, the archayus? And the Rebbe says this so many times in different words, like a fish in water. A fish in water, he swims, he's happy. Teira for us, supposed to be like mayim, teira, mayim chayim. We should be like, the Rebbe says, we should be like fish in water. That's where we want to be. And while we're there, we don't have to get excited. We don't have to be this. But chas v'shalom, if we are separated from it, then we start flapping around. I need to get back into the water because that's where my chayus is. So chayus is not necessarily to know that you have to be excited about something. but it's actually something much more deeper than something, because you get, what do you get excited about? You get excited about the things that are out of the ordinary. And the whole point of Chassidus is not that you should be excited about Torah mitzvahs. The whole point of Chassidus is that Torah mitzvahs should be your life. That should be your breathing. Now, what does it mean get excited? Sometimes the Eibishter puts us in a situation where we have to deal with other things. We have to go. We sometimes have to tear ourselves away from sitting in Farbrengen, or from davening, or from learning, or from being actively involved in mamish in Torah and mitzvahs and yonim, and we have to go. Baruch Hashem, we have to do other things. So while we're there, we should be shaking and flapping around. When can I get back to the Farbrengen? When can I get back and the davening and learning? That's chayus. Chayus is that as long as I'm there, I'm like a fish in water. When I'm in shul, I'm like a fish in water. When I'm learning, I'm like a fish in water. When I'm doing Torah mitzvahs and mivtzayim, I'm like a fish in water, swimming around comfortably. This is where I am. That's my life. And every time, and every time that we're pulled away, and sometimes al potato we're pulled away. The Eibishter gives us sometimes many things that we have to do on our daily schedule, where we're taken away from our chayus. And we should know that now we're uncomfortable. Now I need to be excited. I need to be excited about getting back into my natural habitat, which I need to develop so that I feel, and I realize, well, it is the truth. Maybe I don't realize, I don't feel it, that my natural habitat is Torah, mitzvahs, davening, learning, Farbrengen, afotzas hamayonis, giving the Rebbe nachas, v'chulu, v'chulu. And when we're there, it should be comfortable, it should be good, it should be flowing and moving, and the chas v'sholem, or not necessarily chas v'sholem, because sometimes part of our shliach is to be taken away. Sometimes we have to go out and do, or even yet more, while we are taken away into some other places. I'll go off on a tangent, but it's very pertinent. Dafka with in Yud-Bais Tammuz. Yud-Bais Tammuz. What happened? Yud-Bais Tammuz. The Frierdiker Rebbe was the news of his geula. The Rebbe writes something very interesting. What was bothering the Frierdiker Rebbe when he was in jail? What was mitzad his aveda? On the contrary, he was now. The Frierdiker Rebbe himself writes. He said, I was in jail. I was in prison 7 times. And then he uses terms, something like this. I cannot deny the pleasure I had from the 7th and the most harsh of my imprisonments. Those are the words, the hana. I cannot deny, or I will not deny the pleasure, the hana that I had from the 7th most harsh imprisonment. The harshness of the imprisonment, most of us are aware of some of the details, or all of the details, as much as Rebbe publicized and so on. What's the hana? What kind of pleasure? And he says, what's the proof that I get some pleasure? I got some pleasure out of this. He said, because a person throughout their life, they go through many, many stages. There's the stage of youth. There's a stage of growing into adulthood. There's a stage of being a full-fledged adult. And then there are, during all these different stages, there are all kinds of different situations that you have to deal with. And one of the most, and each of these situations brings to growth. And one of the most growth-inducing situations is when you are battling to spread Hashem's word, and when you have to go butt head to head with people people that and antagonists that are fighting against your drive to spread Hashem's word, and the growth that comes from the, I don't remember the exact words, or the suffering and the hardships, or the so on. Basically, no pain. Pain brings gain. So the Rebbe asks, what's the agmas? What kind of heartache? What heartache would the Frierdiker Rebbe have suffered in jail, knowing that he's there, mamish, as an extension? It's a direct result of his mesirus nefesh. It's not that he went to jail because he slipped up here and there or something. On the contrary, it was a direct result of his full-fledged dedication, mesirus nefesh, to spreading Torah and mitzvahs. So, and this is the way Hashem brought him out. Like, what's and to say that the physical hardships or the material hardships, Rebbe said for sure that it had no effect. Then Rebbe says, so what was bothering him? What was bothering him is that the Eibishter's mission is not being accomplished. It's not that the Frierdiker Rebbe was saying that I'm not able to fulfill my mission. It wasn't about me, him. He says the Eibishter's mission, which was being accomplished, is now not being accomplished because I'm stuck here. So with all of the suffering that he went through and the brutal treatment, pistol whipped, that was not his worry. His worry was, what's with the Eibishter's mission? And the Frierdiker Rebbe himself writes, what got him through? What got him through that period? That he realized that there's something that I can do dafka here. Because I'm here, there's something about the mission that could be accomplished more so because I'm here than if I would not be here. And one of those is that the hisoidus, the awakening by the Chassidim, because of the Rebbe's situation being in prison. So besides what he himself was able to do there, what he would not be able to have done somewhere else, the dira betachtenim, to be able to live God's mission, even in such a low place, is in itself something. But it's even more than that. It's that what he managed to affect outside by the Chassidim that were not in the prison, that he was with them yesterday, but he wasn't able to awaken them and arouse them on such a level that by being in prison, he was able to bring them to something even higher. He got them, the Chassidim, to be. So first of all, there's that message for us to know, is that we need to turn this into something that brings us to a higher level than we were before. But the point I wanted to mention was that just like the Rebbe, when he was in that situation, he was taken away from being able to fulfill Hashem's mission. So when we are let's say we get ourselves to a level of chayus, we get ourselves to a level of chayus where, when I'm diving and learning, that's when I'm most comfortable. I'm most comfortable when I'm diving and learning, like a fish in water. Now it's like breathing me. And if I'm not diving and learning, it's like I'm choking. It's like somebody cut off my oxygen. On the other hand, if the Eibishter puts you in that situation, and for some of us, or most of us, probably all of us, on a daily level, we are put into situations where we cannot be davening and learning and mamish hafatzas hamayonis in its classical sense. But the Yud-based Tammuz message is that what do we have to do? Like the Friedrich Rebbe said, okay, so I can't be like my fish in water here, but the Abish to put me here, there's something that I can do here that could not be done if I was back there. Something that I can do dafka in this situation, and how to utilize. That's the situation that I find myself in to be able to continue to be like a fish in water, to know that we're even here, even in this place, even in this situation. The Abish didn't put me here for any other reason other than to fulfill his only mission. For the only reason why I exist in this world is to make a dira b'tachtonin, and wherever I manage to find myself, even if it's not davening, it's not learning, and it's not the typical hafatzas hamayonis and so on and so forth, there's still nevertheless something which I can accomplish dafke here. And sometimes we have to daven. The Eibishter should show us what that is. Sometimes we know what it is and we avoid it. Sometimes we know what it is and we embrace it. L'chaim, we should embrace it and we should be better and better at it. And dafka sometimes that's the imprisonment that sometimes we have to go through on a daily level. And dafka, because we're in prison, we're able to accomplish certain things that we cannot accomplish even by a seditious habit. L'chaim. few weeks ago, there was a letter printed in the Dvar Malchus, a letter that the Rebbe wrote, the Frierdiker Rebbe. Very interesting lashon there. It was not too long after the Rebbe's were, sometime in the Hay or early Tzaddiks. The Rebbe writes to the Frierdiker Rebbe thanking him very much for the letter that he got from the Frierdiker Rebbe. And this is the interesting lashon the Rebbe writes there, is that I'm lacking certain understandings about certain historical inyonim and Hasidim, which I really, really appreciate that you fill me in on these things. In any case, that Rebbe writes that one of the things that I'm puzzled about is that in the Alter Rebbe's times, there was the famous expression they just said that miracles were, rolling around on the floor, like the gold on the ground in America. Nobody bothered to bend down and pick them up. So the Rebbe asked the Frierdiker Rebbe, he asks, Mela, I can understand why in those days that would be a pertinent approach, because they didn't need it. In other words, miracles, the effect that miracles have on a person are more superficial. And in those days, people were very pessimistic, and therefore they didn't need, even though it's a positive effect that the miracles have, and then the observing and knowing and learning about the miracles that the Rebbe does, because it's more of a makiftik, a superficial effect, so they didn't need it. They were more premiums. But the Rebbe writes, in today's day, where people are not that pessimistic, and people need even this level of a superficial inspiration, it's still very important. So why are we not? That's Rebbe's letter. The question, I don't know if the Rebbe answered or not, whatever. But Mabit Ba'ashkocha Pratis, in that very same week when I saw that letter in the Dvar Malchus, I saw something that in Yale's book, and there he writes, he explains a letter that the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote about this inyan, about miracles, and in that letter the Frierdiker Rebbe writes that there was a mashpia in the times of the Alter Rebbe, a mashpia of the name Reb Leib, maybe Reb Leib, mashpia Reb Leib. And the Alter Rebbe, he set up, that it was very mesuder. So Reb Leib was one of the mashpiyim, and his job was to oversee a certain group of Jungelite, and to make sure and to keep them on track and to follow their progress and what a mashpiyah is supposed to do. And so Reb Leib once wrote in one of the young men under his mashpiyahship was a guy, either a bocher or a young man who had come from another non-Alter Rebbe yeshiva or community or whatever. He had left his friends. Was another Chassidish group, another Chassidish those, and they used to ridicule him a lot. So it's fine, So look, we know that the davening and the learning that you're doing about the Alter Rebbe, it's really, it's nice. We can see that it has changed you and so on. We understand why you went over there, that side of the fence. But you guys, the moifsim of the Rebbe is by you is nothing like by them it's a whole aveda was like why are you not paying attention or giving any credence to that whole aspect of Rebbe miracles, Rebbe stories? Well, Rebbe stories are inspirational in many different ways, but the miracle ones. Why and they used to ridicule him for that, and he really didn't know what's the explanation. Why over here by the Alter Rebbe are we not taking advantage of the inspiration, albeit a makiftik, a superficial one, but it's still an inspiration on its level. Why are we not doing that? But he was even too embarrassed to even ask about it, this young man. So the Friedrich Rebbe writes that on one of the reports that Rebbe Leib wrote into the Alter Rebbe about the Younger Light, what was going on, so the Alter Rebbe answered, and he said, and the Alter Rebbe wrote to Rebbe Leib, this particular younger man, he's troubled, and you need to help him there's something personal going on with him, get on top, be on top of it. And then the Alter Rebbe writes, this will be a sign in a mirror and this will be a sign and a wonder for him. So Rabbi Leib, he didn't even know that this younger man, that there was something bothering him or anything. He calls him over and says, look, I got this answer from the Alter Rebbe that's something bothering you, and this and this. And then he shows him the Alter Rebbe, what the Alter Rebbe wrote. This will be for him a sign and a wonder. So the younger man already understood what the Alter Rebbe had read his mind, and so on and so forth. And he told him. So I'm not sure where the answer came from Rabbi Leib or from the Alter Rebbe. But the way Rabbi Yael, I'm not sure if the Friedrich Rebbe writes it exactly this way, or this is Rabbi Yael's explanation of what it is. But the bottom line is that he writes as follows: that if you would take notice, you would realize that you are living the biggest miracle. The fact that you came before you came to the Alter Rebbe, even the Torah that you learned was on a certain level, and now you're learning Chassidus, which is in Yonim Elokus, a godly insight, and this godliness, which is something which is totally out of this world, beyond all parameters of this world, and you are absorbing it into your mind, which is a flesh and blood mind. The fact that if the Eibishter has to do a miracle, hamafli la'asos, that the neshama and the goof stay together. The neshama is spiritual, the goof is physical, and that these two things should stick together and hold together. That in itself is a constant miracle that we need to be thankful, aware, and thankful on a constant level. It says, imagine the miracle that your mind, your flesh and blood mind, is able to hold on to godly concepts, which are mamish also way beyond what a physical mind should be able to hold on to. And the fact that you're here, that by the Alter Rebbe and learning Chassidus, that is the greatest miracle that's going on. So that's the miracle that you need to be concentrating on. It's not that we don't deal with miracles, or there's a famous story with the Rebbe that a group of students somewhere in the 60s and 70s, a group of students were by the Rebbe in Yechidus, and one of the students asked the Rebbe, "Is it true that the Rebbe does miracles?" And the Rebbe said, "Yes." And then the Rebbe said, "Would you like me to do a miracle right now? Let's do a miracle together?" And of course, yeah, let's find this. Okay, I want everybody to stop and concentrate and think about something which you should be doing, but you're putting it off because you don't think that you have the koyach to do it. And I want you to make a commitment that you're going to do it, and you will see the miracle that what really may have been impossible, because it was beyond your capabilities. It really was. The Rebbe wasn't saying you're not honest with yourself, and you're pushing off things, something which you really should be doing, and you're making excuses for yourself. The Rebbe was taking it at face value. He says you didn't take it, you pushed it off, you avoided it because truthfully, it really was something which was beyond your capabilities. And the Rebbe said, I want you to make that commitment. And the Rebbe said, I'm going to do a miracle here. It's not, the Google version of self-help coaching. This is a miracle, the Rebbe is saying. We're going to do a miracle, something which you really could not do before because it was beyond your physical capability. You're going to make a commitment now that you're going to do it. And the Rebbe takes, I'm going to I'll do a miracle, and you'll be able to do something that you weren't able to do before. You will be able to do it. That's going to be the miracle. That you will be able to do something that you really were not able to do before you came into this room, and asked the Rebbe to do a miracle. Yud-Beis Tammuz is a miracle. Not stam a miracle. It's a miracle which was baked into creation. Right? One of the Rebbe's explanations in Sharichas Be'amuna is that when the Eibishter created the world, he created the world. This is clearly in the Medrash. It says that when he created the world, he created the Yamsuf in such a way that the Yamsuf knew that there was going to have to be a Kriyas Yamsuf, and al derech zeh, the world knew that they were going to have to facilitate a Yud Tes Kislev and a Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz. It's baked into the creation. That miracle. And a miracle means the miracles that we as the Lubavitch Chassidim, that we have the highest of the miracles is not the superficial part that get excited about. Wow, it's not the wow factor. It's the miracle in since the Alter Rebbe's times. Bayun's a miracle is Hamafli Lasois. Hamafli Lasois is the amazing miracle that we live, that we bring godliness into our lives on a level which is beyond comprehension. It's something that the Rebbe promises that every single one of us, and every single moment, and every time that we want to do something godly, to do something to fulfill our shlichus, and to give the Rebbe nachas, and to do something which is going to further the nyonim of hafatzas hamayonus and geula v'chulu, which, even though it seems it's beyond me, what's going to help? How's it going to work? What's it going to do? You do it. You do it. You think again. Let the Rebbe do his share. Let the Rebbe do his share. That's one of the understandings of the relationship between us and the Rebbe, is that we're in a partnership. The Rebbe undertakes to do his share, says, you do your share, I'll do my share. And the Rebbe says, and that the Rebbe promises that if you do this and that, this is gonna be the result. Not up to us to figure out, well, how's that going to happen? I don't see it in that. But you do your share, Rebbe will do his share. That's the bitachon that we have, the absolute certainty and total, what's not the word, reliance, trust, the total trust, the bitachon, total trust that the Rebbe will do his share. Time. All right.
Electric guitar.
You can't hear anything without a amplifier, huh?
Get it on one pie. Wood.
Where's the amplifier?
It's all Malami. I know you like it. Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
They tell a story that after Tufshin Yud, the Rashag was not very compliant, that the Rebbe is with the Nesius and so on. Then they said that one time the Rashag asked the Rebbe a question, and the Rebbe said, "I'm going to the Tzion. I'll ask." That the Rebbe comes back and he brings an answer. And Rashag said it was so clear that the answer he brought back was from Shver. That I said, I can also go and ask, but to get an answer. So and that's they say is that when he accepted that the Rebbe is is the. In any case, so sometimes that now, and that is to say that the answer that came is like it was sure, like maybe the Rebbe is coming. The answer, but sometimes no, I could say, you know where it's coming from. I'll tell you a story. I heard this story happened a long time ago. I just heard it this week. Very similar to that. The story happened, I think about Tufshin Nun Vav, Tufshin Nun Zayin. If anybody remembers that period of time, it was like, not long after Gimel Tammuz, emotions was running high for a long time. But emotions should always be high because we're all about, Chabad is all about emotions, even though we call ourselves Chabad, but that's sort of like, what we're really about, taking care of the emotions. The Shana says, in any case, emotions are running high, but, people are still, when you go through when you go into Golus is not an easy thing. It takes time. It takes time to learn how to deal with the Eibishter in Golus. When you're in Gula and the Eibishter is one way, then all of a sudden the Eibishter starts treating you in a different way. What does he want from me? So as if you guys are still a bit young over here, you got white in your beard, so you remember Tufshin and Zion. So I heard that there was a Farbrengen in 770 in Chabad. 770 Chabad. There's a Farbrengen, and one guy says that Rebbe wants to be like this, another guy says that Rebbe wants to be like this, and they're battling it out. And the atmosphere, was not very comfortable there. Until at one point, one guy gets up and he leaves the Farbrengen, in a huff. And a half hour later, he comes back. And sits down by the Farbrengen. So they said to him, what happened? He said, I went home. And I stood in front of the Rebbe's picture. And I asked the Rebbe, what does the Rebbe want? The Rebbe wants what I said, or the Rebbe wants what he said. So I said, no. So what did the Rebbe answer you? The Rebbe answered me, I want you to go back to the Farbrengen. As soon as he came back, the guy who told the story, who was a Bach at the time, said the atmosphere changed. The whole atmosphere changed by the Farbrengen. This guy's willing to listen to what he has to say. This guy's willing to listen to what he has to say. So the guy said, no, you're right. Says, nah, maybe you're right. Whatever. Well, atmosphere changed. Things like this. Now, the picture didn't talk. Nobody claims that this picture talked. But I think it's anybody who has a shtickle their head, how the Rebbe deals with issues. Let me put it this way: if this guy would have gone to his mashpia and said, I just came from a Farbrengen, and this guy said like this, and I said like that, tell me you're my mashpia. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. What's the right thing? Right? And even if you would call up, get together all the top 50 mashpiyim in the world, or the top 100, or go around the whole world and ask them, I don't think any one of them would have said, what the Rebbe wants? The Rebbe wants you to go back to the Farbrengen. I think it's clear that's in other words, I believe the story. It's so clear that came from the Rebbe. This guy didn't make up the answer. No mashpia, no mashpia, no chassid would come up with an answer like that. It's once you hear it, it's like, wow, that's so clear, so obvious. But it's the kind of obvious thing that the Rebbe all of a sudden puts a whole new light on something which you never would have thought on our own. And once the Rebbe shows it to you, it's so light and bright that it's so obvious. What? How could I not have thought of it? But now that it's thought of it, it's so clear. In any case, so it came from the Rebbe. Now, the picture didn't talk. So where do you get this answer? Where did he get the answer from? In the words of the guy who told the story, it's the Rebbe in his heart. He stood by the picture, and he asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe in his heart answered him. So I don't know. I didn't see this, but I think the gem video that they show, I think around the world is probably the whole thing. I didn't see last week's, but somebody just told me that the one on last Motzei Shabbos. He said somebody asked the Rebbe something. I didn't see it, so I don't remember exactly. And the Rebbe used the words, I think that way he quoted, Hanosi Asher Bekirboy. Yeah, maybe I'm misquoting it, or maybe they don't do the same thing around the world, or maybe this guy, whatever. But just like the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, every Yid has a chelik elokam imal mamish. Right? We hear that voice, right? We call it the Eitz Tov, the Eitz Hara, whatever it is. Yeah. Alter Rebbe uses different terminology for nefesh mamis and the nefesh elokis. There's another voice that we have inside of us, and that voice is the Eitz, the Hanosi Asher B'Kibrei. The Rebbe is in your heart. Every chassid. Now, how do you hear that voice? How do you hear that voice? The Gemara says that if a person gives tzedakah and he says, "I'm giving this tzedakah and I want to, my children should be healthy. I'm giving tzedakah, my children should be healthy." The tzaddik gomer. And the Rebbe explains why are we calling this guy tzaddik gomer? If he's clearly doing a mitzvah for the sake of a reward. And the Rebbe's explanation is as follows: when we say tzaddik gomer, it's not tzaddik gomer in the classical sense. Certainly, it's not the tzaddik of Tanya. He's called a tzaddik because he did the right thing. He gave the tzedakah, which was the right thing. But what happened here? What the deeper meaning of tzaddik gomer? The Gemara is trying to tell you as follows: you should know that the voice inside of him is not on the level of. There's a voice inside you that tells you give tzedakah this, right? That voice is not on the level of give tzedakah so that your children should be healthy. You should not know. That voice is on the level of a tzaddik gomer. And that's how that voice in the morning, he said, give tzedakah, because that's what the Eibishter wants. This guy, he didn't even hear that voice. He's so not in tune, he didn't even hear it. So the voice says, okay, I got to talk to him. I'll dumb it down a little bit. It says, give tzedakah because you'll have olam haba. He's so not interested in that, he didn't even hear what the guy was saying. So the voice was talking. So he comes up with a give tzedakah. Finally, that voice inside of him, which was coming, said, you know what? Give tzedakah, amanas shliach b'ni. Yeah. And that interested him. He heard it. Great idea. And he gives it tzedakah. So the Gemara is telling you, you should know that even though he did not hear the voice until it was dumbed down to the level where he was able to understand the language it was talking, you should know that really this guy is a tzaddik gomer, and the source of that voice is a tzaddik gomer. It started from a tzaddik level. Do it because it's l'shma balda. That's what the Eibishter wants. So what's the difference between the real tzaddik and this tzaddik? The real tzaddik, he hears the voice already at that level. It's the same. It's the same. The source is the same, and they speak the same language. The question is, how far do they have to dumb it down until you hear it? So we have a Rebbe Asher B'Kirboi. We have a voice of the Rebbe inside of us also. And I'm sure we hear it here and there. The question is, and this is our challenge, this is what we have to be honest with ourselves, is how much does it have to be dumbed down until that now? And choose, I want to say a little bit different. I think the Rebbe is listening to that. I don't want to dumb it down. I want to lift you up. Yeah, there's other voices that their job is to dumb it down. My job is to lift you up. And I think the litmus test here is not when do I hear the Rebbe's voice. If you hear the Rebbe's voice, you're already okay. So the question isn't what level am I at? What level does the Rebbe have to dumb it down until he reaches me? If you're hearing the Rebbe, then you're okay. But that's the real question. Am I hearing the Rebbe? This guy went home. I don't know if he's always like that or if he had a moment, but you can imagine what pneumius level he had to be on to be able to come back to that Farbrengen and sit down and say, "I'm here because the Rebbe told me to come back to the Farbrengen." Huh?
You had to wait for Rebbe to dumb it down to say, go back and tell him you're right. Then you come back and I spoke to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe spoke to me. If you're wrong, you know.
I don't think the Rebbe's been interested in that. I don't think that's the whole thing. I was saying that I'm not interested in that whole argument.
That's saying, it's Rebbe, you dumbed it down too much. So it's not
Then it's not exactly right. That's how when I told the story, I think you all agreed with me. Yeah, that was the Rebbe. He didn't make that up. Only the Rebbe would say that, which means you have to be at that level. The Rebbe talks at that level. Otherwise, it might not be the Rebbe if it's coming down. But although I will say that, and I think and for this we have to thank the Rebbe always that even though we're not always in that level, sometimes the Rebbe does come down to our level and pull us up. He does pull us up. He doesn't say, "I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting here for you until you come up to me." But the question is, you want to give the Rebbe nachas on this level? You want to give the Rebbe nachas on the level where, okay, sometimes your kid really was not behaving, but you do it anyways. Sometimes the kid really behaves. It's an obvious difference when you give them the. So, what level do you want to be? Which relationship do you want with the Rebbe? Of course, we would like to. I'll give you. And I may have told the story last year, although I'll tell it again. It's one of my favorite Rebbe stories, but it's such a classical example of how. I once heard from Rabbi Mendy Deren, Olav Shalom. He gave questions into the Rebbe and passed on the answers. So I don't know, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of questions that went through the answer. So he told me, he said one time, he said more than once, people would ask questions which I gave into the Rebbe, and I was sure. I thought to myself, I know what the Rebbe is going to answer. Obviously, he never says anything, but says, I know what the Rebbe is going to answer. But gives him out shot. Said, I was never right. Said, I was never right. I'll give you a riddle. True story. So if you know the story, don't ruin it for anybody who doesn't know the story. The story happened in Samarkand in the 50s. This was shortly after Topshin Yud, 50s or 60s. I'm not sure. It's somewhere in the 50s or 60s or early 60s. The Chassidim were running the underground Talmud Torahs and Chadorim with Mesiras Nefesh, and people who had gotten caught paid with their lives for this, and it's a very, very delicate situation. Anyhow, so the Chassidim that came to Samarkand, most of them were up north, but for whatever reason they moved down because the situation in those years was a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to be to keep Yiddishkeit. So they moved down south into Bukhara. So they brought with them their system so that they rebuilt the underground chadorim, etc. It's just an amazing story in itself. In any case, amongst the Chassidim, there was a bit of a debate. They came with their families and their children, and they made the chadorim. But one of them said, we're here in with all with the Yidden here in Samarkand. Let's incorporate their kids also into this underground Talmud Torah system. Now, the argument was as follows. One group said, one way of thinking was, yeah, of course, the Yiddish children, we're willing to have Mesiras Nefesh. We're willing to have Mesiras Nefesh for these Yiddish children. So let's incorporate them also into the Talmud Torah. The other group is saying, listen, they're not so used to the Mesiras Nefesh that's necessary to keep this thing going. And Chas v'Shalom, if one of the kids or one of the parents, says the wrong word, it could topple the whole thing. So we're risking the whole network by possibly bringing in, children who are not able to live up to the situation. On the other hand, they're saying these are Yiddish children, So who can decide yes or no? Only the Rebbe could decide. So they had to write to the Rebbe. The Rebbe was then. So they had a whole system of how they would write letters to the Rebbe, codes and this. Anyhow, one of the Chassidim there, I think, got out from at that time. So the question that they brought to the Rebbe was brought not in code, clear, but the answer had to come back in code. So the answer was going to be that the Rebbe was they used to call him Dadrushka. They're writing to Zayda, they're writing the questions, and Zayda would answer in code what he wanted. Like the story, there's blue ink and black ink, blue ink and red ink, the story. The guy goes to Russia, and they said, listen, we know you can't tell us the situation, what's going on over there. And if what you're writing is true, write it in blue ink. And if what you're writing is exactly the opposite, write it in red ink. So they get a letter in blue ink. And in blue ink, it says, everything is wonderful here. This food, this sleeping arrangement, this is the most wonderful country in the world. Mamish, everything you could possibly want is fantastic, except I can't find any blue ink. In any case, so the answer that the Rebbe was going to answer them is the Rebbe is like the Zayda, and it was as if one of the Chassidim had a shoe factory, and he's asking the Rebbe, he's asking the Zayda, I want to send you a pair of shoes. I have black shoes and I have white shoes. You want black shoes? You want white shoes, or both shoes? Which shoes do you want? And according to black shoes, white shoes, both shoes, they know which children are supposed to take into the Talmud Torah, to the underground system. It doesn't matter. What did the Rebbe answer? Huh? Both shoes. Huh? Any shoe. Yeah, you're the closest one. The Rebbe says Zayda doesn't know the difference between black shoes and white shoes. He doesn't know the difference. Chaim and Chaim. Shoe. Tira ra 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 tira ra tira la ra ta ra la ra ta ra la ra hey. For me, no. You want no. I'm trying to give it a little more. Ay 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 la 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 hey ay la la Chaim with the bracha. and I'll tell you a Moifus story that I just heard recently. I was in an office, a shul that's in an office. So a bunch of guys there. And like it always happens when there's a bunch of guys there on this, especially in Israel nowadays, so everything goes to politics. So, and of course, everybody has an opinion. And one of the lawyers, he's actually, so one of the guys at this conversation is looking up, my brother's cousin, knows somebody who's this guy's neighbor, who's, and he said that they're the neighbor of some high-ranking official. I don't even remember who he said, and in the government or in the army or something, whatever. And they're about to do this or this and that happen, whatever. And so one of the guys was there with a lawyer, and this lawyer actually, I know that he's in intelligence. And he's been very busy for the last several months, like from Simchas Torah until last week when he told us when he was there at this conversation. He only showed up for work now, maybe a total of 2 or 3 weeks the whole time, because he was in the reserves. Like about 2 months after he came one day to the office, like you could see on his face, like he was still ashen white, just from what's going on. Like they said, we were up north, and then we were in Gaza, and then we had this and that. And he wouldn't go into great detail what was going on. But in any case, the bottom line is, he says, listen, you heard from somebody who knows somebody who's neighbors with somebody in that. Listen, I'm in intelligence, and I'm telling you, if that were true, I would certainly know about it, and I don't know about it, and that so first of all, you know what we're talking about. And second of all, he starts playing devil's advocate. Now, most of the guys who are sitting around there, right wingers, just saying this way and that way. So he says, look, sometimes how these lefties, sometimes they can put questions, even twist things around. See, he wasn't being, facetious in any way, but he was just, like I said, playing devil's advocates. Why do you think it's this? Maybe it's that. Why are you so sure such and such? I happen to know that's this and that. And he was just putting the questions. But basically, he was trying to throw a wrench into the situation, but in a friendly way, not he's just basically he was saying, or in his own words, after a while, he says, why are we talking politics? Why are we talking politics? Let me tell you a story. I'll tell you a story about a neighbor of mine. His neighbor says, we're friends, we became friends, and he just told my wife this story that happened to him, his own personal story. Now, he said, we knew that he had been wounded many years ago. He was wounded in some military operation, but it was a really serious wound. I'm not sure what it was, but he said he was in rehab for 5 years. So this is a serious situation. And the guy says, and my neighbor, he just told my wife a story, and the story goes as follows: that after he was wounded, whatever it was, he was in a coma, and he was in this rehab place, whatever people in comas just go to, whatever to happen. Anyhow, he woke up from his coma, and I guess it must have been a thing, because all of a sudden, like all the nurses and they all heard about it, and they all came running to see what's going on. And he tells them, he says, and they ask, what? He says, so I said, I got to tell you something. He says, I had this vision or a dream. Is that I was in this big hall, and there's all kinds of people going all kinds of different directions, running here, running there, and this and that. And big balagan, and all the way at the end of a hall, some rabbi announces, "Mirotze lichyot," who wants to live? And I'm all with the other side. I want to live. And I fought my way across the room. I read this rabbi. "Mirotze lichyot." I want to live. And then I woke up. So here I am. Like they were amazed. Like, it's like who is this rabbi? I don't know. So the lawyer tells a story. He says they brought him a bunch of pictures and advice. It was the Rebbe. So obviously it was the Rebbe. Anyhow, so this fresh Rebbe story. It may have happened. Well, it certainly happened several years ago because he's already gone through his rehab and built a family. Huh?
Ellen would know the Rebbe's picture, but what rabbi is all over.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people know they like. I have a friend, a Lubavitch guy. This story happened. This story was actually in the news. This was. I don't remember how many years ago this was. This was. I'll make a long story short. This guy is a Lubavitcher today, but he was once that. Yeah. How did the story go? I'm trying to remember. So they were. So he was with his friends, and they were putting up. You know how the culture in Israel, the clapping posters on the bulletin boards, right? Every neighborhood and everything has bulletin boards, and they put up posters of all kinds of different things. That's part of this socialist culture, whatever. Anyhow, so that's how the news gets around, and so they were putting up political posters. This was Bibi in Paris. So he was working with the Bibi guys, and then there was the Paris. So this is like very, very close to the elections. So the thing was that you have to put these posters up at night, and then in the morning, whatever, where people go. So there's a battle, like